Oh, Twitch chat. Guess who's running late? It's me. It's this guy. It's my fault. Thank you for being patient. I appreciate it. Fanaria, hello. Thanks for being first. Anyone else who's out there, hi. I'm Abbers. I play video games here on Twitch sometimes. I also interview other streamers about streaming sometimes. And today I have a lovely guest. I'm very excited to introduce her. Here is a little clip. Maybe, theoretically. There we go. Oh, but it's tiny. What happened? Oh no, everything's wrong, guys. What's happening? Hold, please, while I figure my life out. There we go. Hi, Dark Wolf. Thanks for being here. Good to see everybody. Today has just been the day of technical difficulties. It's exciting. And Claire has been awesome and patient. Okay, here we go. This is claircares.
I'm becoming increasingly aware of how likely it is that at some point some part of my body will fail and my doctors will blame it on fatness. And that I will have to fight them to get the care that I need. Because all of us have body parts that fail. But fat people are blamed for those failures and denied medical care systematically. So it's a burden. I'm becoming increasingly.
I love that clip because I think it's just like so succinct and says so much of what I believe in and what I think is so important. And Claire, I'm so excited to talk to you. How's it going?
It's going good, yeah.
Good. Like I said, appreciate your patience and everything today. And yeah, we were talking earlier. I wore my fat bitch shirt just because it felt like the vibe. It felt like the way to go today. Well,
Totally.
you want to just jump right into it?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So when was your very first stream?
I think it was about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
I had been like watching Twitch for about a year at that point, and made the like slow slide into being a streamer. So
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
just I was streaming Elden Ring,
Oh,
I think,
nice.
because I was like grouping with friends. That's what I told myself, that like, oh, I'll just like put it on Twitch so they can like see and we can group and it'll be fun. But I was really just like dipping my toes in,
Okay. Okay.
trying it out.
And what made you kind of want to? I like this idea of like I was telling myself this, but really I was doing this. Can you just go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think um I was in other people's communities, and it like they were so friendly, and I'd met some of the nicest people I know through Twitch. And so I think it was like envy a little bit. Like I'm like, oh, I want to have a little internet house of my own, where the nice people I like can hang out with me.
Yeah.
Uh, and I thought it was like a good area for like personal growth for me, because I usually prefer not to be seen. I think as a
Mm,
fat person, it's really beaten into you that like your body isn't meant to be seen. And so I thought it was like a good way to like push myself into being more comfortable being seen,
yeah.
uh, and hopefully bring some happiness to other fat people that are like, hey, there's a fat person being seen in the world. Uh, so yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, I think there's lots of different aspects of identity that kind of feel this, but I think in particular being a fat person, there is this kind of pressure to not take up space. And that truly is physical space, but also That can be like, I don't know, emotional space or just like visibility, I think, like you're saying. So I think that's really great. Have you found that it has helped and that you do feel seen?
Interesting. I think so. I think I like surprise myself with how comfortable I am with it.
Mm,
I mean, I think it helps that like my streams are really small. And so usually I know everyone who is
mm-hmm.
watching. So that feels pretty comfortable. But uh yeah, I thought I would be more nervous and have a harder time with it, but you are at the end of the day, you're just like talking in your office,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah. Totally. Yep.
and no one's ever said anything mean to me in like a year and a half of streaming. Like,
Nice.
maybe I'm just lucky, but I've never had anyone come in and be a jerk.
Oh,
So,
that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Especially because like you are one that you really put it out there with your tags and with your bio and everything. And so I think that at least for me, I think that I have gotten trolls based on that specifically. Um but I don't want to like not have those because at the same time I think it's brought people in that vibe with that, you know? So I'm glad to hear that you haven't experienced trolls or meanness. Hopefully it stays that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. That brings up something for me, like the bisexual tag.
Mm,
um, feels like particularly important to me in this space because I'm not like out in the rest of my life.
yeah.
Like my husband knows, but like I live a very straight passing life,
Mm,
and I'll only kind of recently has it like clicked that I'm like bisexual, even though I've like had relationships with women. It never like I never applied that label to
interesting.
myself. And I had kind of a bad experience coming out to someone one time. Not like super like traumatic or anything, but I think it just like pushed me away from like identifying that way for most of my life. So um that one's really important to me to just be like out in like at least one space in my life because I don't know. I've never gotten to express that side of myself until like
Yeah.
recently. And in some ways, I think like as a bi woman married to a cis man, you feel like I don't really belong.
Yeah.
Uh because like in some ways it feels irrelevant, right? Like I'm married to a man. Why
Mm,
isn't relevant uh to like identify that way? But um it's just true.
yeah.
You know, like it
Yeah.
just that is who I am.
Yeah.
And like when I see um other people who identify as like lesbian, gay, bi, like I I feel it in my soul, right?
Yeah.
Like cuz like I'm like we are kin.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, I
Um
feel I feel that so hard in so many ways. Like I think bi erasure is very, very real and very, very prevalent. And especially I think for women and femme identifying folks, there's something really interesting about this idea of like social acceptability with being attracted to women and at the same time a dismissal of it. Like, does that make sense? Like it's not taken seriously, maybe? Um, and then yeah, like you said, like being in a hetero passing relationship like that I'm sure contributes to this kind of idea of maybe like not being queer enough or having it not have relevancy, like you said. And I think that the internet has been a space for a lot of people. I know for myself and Twitch in particular, actually, to really like explore what it feels like to really lean into these identities and to find labels that feel real and that going back to this idea of being seen, like help us to feel seen with that. So thank you for sharing that because I think that's certainly something that I feel in common with you. Like I think that like I've obviously always been queer, but it Twitch has been a large part of me kind of like finding like what that feels like to own that in a space and also own it in a space that is like relatively safe, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I've like really enjoyed how not judgmental and like I've met so many other bi people too. So that's like a whole new experience where you get to like, I don't know, have that connection and have that in common.
Yeah.
It's super fun. Being
Yeah.
bi is super fun.
Yeah. I love that. I love that for you. That's great. Yeah, as far as like building a community and kind of finding like-minded folks and stuff, like what has that been like in terms of like I'm always curious this idea of like I guess nature versus nurture in some way of like who naturally kind of gravitates to you and at the same time like what you're doing to kind of put yourself out there and try to like gain a community. What is that like for you? How do you experience that?
Um, I I experience a lot of confusion on that front. Like, um, the people who come in are usually people that I've met through like other people's chats or discords.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's like primarily how people find me is they've like interacted with me somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you know, I kind of post on social media when I'm like gonna stream, but I don't really try very hard.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people at least like take a selfie of themselves and are like, "Hey, I'm streaming today." And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Nah, you just get the link."
That's fine.
Maybe I can come up with something clever that day
Yeah.
to say in it, but uh yeah, I don't know. I have like competing desires where like I really want to be seen and that's not a part of myself I'm comfortable with.
Mm.
And then I also really enjoy like small group dynamics. So I've never been like someone who's very comfortable at parties or like crowds. So like just having a chat of like 3 to 4 people feels like so cozy and fun.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, on the other hand, I love people's like streams where there's like just like a whole lot going on and everyone's throwing all their ideas and all their jokes and doing all the sound alerts. Like that all is like so fun and energizing to me too. So I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, like growth will happen if it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the most important thing is like that I have a good time and that the people who are there are watching or having a good time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
And how do you measure that? How do you know? This might be a silly question, but how do you know if you're having a good time streaming? I guess.
Um, huh. I think it's like when I not like feeling self-conscious, like when it
Mm.
just like flows and you're like just chatting the whole time and the time goes by really fast and you're like, "Oh
Yeah.
wow, I've been streaming for 4 hours. I was supposed to be out of here like an hour and a half ago."
Yeah.
So and everyone has dreams where it's just like I am the least interesting person in the world and I have nothing of value to say.
Mm.
And I'm just sitting here uncomfortably
Mm-hmm.
talking to myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's just like it makes me think of something someone said to me about making art, which is like everyone has like tons of bad art inside of themselves and you just got to like get it out
Yeah.
to get to the good stuff. So I'm like, you know what? You're going to have some bad streams every once in a while. And if you really don't like it, you can publish it
Yeah.
and just like move on completely.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I've been having some tough streams lately. I tried to do this thing where I'm like playing Plague Tale and it is in French with French subtitles. Um, and then I've been mostly speaking in English, but um, like playing the game fully in French because it takes place in France and it's made by a French developer. So it's like really authentic. It feels a way to play it, but um, it's been really hard to like keep up talking and like
Yeah.
when your brain is trying to switch back and forth between two languages. And so I just have like a fight going on in my head about like which language is going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And then there's like awkward pauses where I just don't end up saying anything. And I'm like, oh, this thing I thought would be really fun and cool is actually like just awkward and weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Like,
interesting.
but I'm like, I'm happy I tried it.
Yeah.
Um, because it has led to like some like fun interactions with people I know that like speak French, and hop into those dreams. But like sometimes you gotta throw in the towel
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
like, you know what, this isn't fun. I'm
Totally.
I'm stressing out about this. But so
Hmm.
hopefully that doesn't come across too much like during the stream. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot that you said there. I used to work as a musician, and I had a musician friend that talked about writing songs and songwriting, and this quote lives in my brain forever. But he said, "Writing is a muscle that needs to be flexed." That I really loved, because it's this idea of like kind of what you're saying, where it's like it's not necessarily about like creating art or creating content that is good every time, so much as just creating, and the act of creation in and of itself. And I think that that's like really hard when you're streaming is fascinating, because you're in this like public space, and there's not really room for like practicing. Maybe there is, you can practice certain things ahead of time, but like it's so spontaneous in nature that like there was no way for you to know that that game would feel that way until you actually streamed it, right? So like I think there's something interesting about content creation and streaming in particular, where like you're really forced to just kind of try things on the fly and see what happens, you know?
I think that it's really hard for folks who are recovering perfectionists.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
uh, yeah. So it is like Twitch is just such an amazing area for growth for me. Like in the putting myself out there and like making visible mistakes, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, when I reached out to you to do this podcast, to be a guest, you actually said something along the lines of like, I need to get my imposter syndrome thoughts kind of in check, and then I'll get back to you. Which, like, first of all, I really appreciate people who are self-aware and that like will just be like honest about that stuff. So thank you for that. And also thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited that you're here. Can you talk a little bit about imposter syndrome and just like what that means to you, and then how that kind of shows up in streaming?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. That response was like me not doing the thing that I usually do, where I just like ghost someone for a couple weeks
Oh
while
my God,
I'm
I'm so
like
glad you didn't ghost me.
dealing
Thank
with
you.
my dealing with my feelings. And I'm like, Abbers doesn't deserve that. You need to
Aw,
like respond to
thank
her.
you.
But yeah, I think it's as a small streamer, I think it's really easy to feel like an imposter, um, because there's such a focus on numbers in like the whole Twitch interface.
Yeah.
Um, and and that part of me that wants to be seen also like wants more numbers. Uh, um, so yeah, and then like kind of earlier on feeling like an imposter gamer, because
Yeah.
like I like my skills have improved a lot over the last couple of years, but like my an example is like I don't know, 3 years ago or so I tried to play Hollow Knight.
Okay. That's a
And
rough one. I've never even played it, but I know it's a rough one. Yeah.
yeah, I watched my husband play through some of it and I was like, this is just so cool. I love the art style and the like whole vibe of it. And I was like, okay, I'll just give it a go and see how far I get, which was like not far. I think it's like the first sort of difficult boss I couldn't get through
Yeah.
after like banging my head against it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then just recently I played through it and I was like, this is my skill level. Like I can do this. And I beat
Hey.
Hollow Knight. And I was just like, I beat Hollow Knight. And I've been telling everyone
Nice. That's
since,
amazing.
because I'm just really excited about it. It's really fun to see like your skills progressing. Usually you don't
Yes.
get very like concrete measures of that.
Totally.
So that's been like a super fun highlight in my gaming life that helps me a little bit with my imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I'm like, real gamers beat Hollow Knight. Not that there is a real gamer, and
Right.
I'm also like, why is that part of my brain saying that?
Well,
Like, if you play games, you're a real gamer.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think gaming and video games in particular, it's very gendered in terms of what is considered a real game and what is not, right? I think that more like feminine games, again, whatever that means, but I think when I say that, everyone knows what I'm talking about. Those games are considered more casual and they're not considered skill based. And so I think something like Hollow Knight is very much a skill based game, right? And so that I think we equate because of the fucked up world that we live in, to masculinity, and that's a boy game. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I remember, this memory will stick in my mind forever. It was this Christmas like years ago. My brothers went in together to get me a refurbished PS3, and PlayStation is a boy system, right? Nintendo is kind of a girl system. Again, this is not actually true, but this is just how we view these things, right? So I remember that being this weird, like, gender affirming moment, and also like gamer affirming moment of like, oh my God, I get to be a real gamer and play on a PlayStation. You know what I mean? Which is like so silly because exactly what you said. If you play a game, you're a gamer. But we do really live in this kind of like gendered world, and I think gaming really is dominated by toxic masculinity, and that shows up in what we see as being legitimate with regards to games and gaming, you know?
I totally agree. Yeah. I think that being a real gamer in that like sort of gendered sense is like there has to be some sort of suffering involved.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like with the FromSoft games and with like Hollow Knight, like gotta have some blood, sweat, and tears in there. It
Sure.
doesn't really count as like really playing a game.
That's
And it like
interesting.
is analogous to other like male associated things like whiskey is usually like advertised to men and as like a harsh drink. You know what I mean? Like some amount of suffering has to occur for it to be truly masculine.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I love FromSoft games too. Like
Yeah.
after being like not good at games, like you just get used to dying.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I started playing Elden Ring, and I'm like, this is normal for me, where I like die 20 times before I get past like a tunnel of a few guys.
Those games
Like,
really like force you to like be okay with that, you know.
mm-hmm.
And statistically, I would have to look this up to know like for certain what the numbers are, but generally speaking, you've got an equal population of both masculine folks and feminine folks and non-binary folks. It's not necessarily this thing where it's like, oh, most video games are played by men. It's like it's just not true. But it's interesting that we, yeah, I like your observation of suffering being part of it. I think that's true. And like the way that we define games, I think game theory is really fascinating. Games are self-imposed obstacles that we need to get over, and there's satisfaction from that, right? So when we're talking about these obstacles being suffering and frustration in particular, I think there is, yeah, something to be said about our thought of that being masculine, you know? It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like in the market for a cozy game. So if anyone has good
Ooh,
cozy game recommendations,
Twitch chat,
I
throw them
need
in
one.
there. Yeah,
I was
yeah,
playing Dwarf Romantic, but my brain decided it's done. It
it's
just does
over it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, fair. Um, have you always been into video games, or is that something that is more recent in your life?
Um, primarily more recent. Well, sorry, let me dig back. Like I was a 90s kid, so we had Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Those were like the two systems we had. And Mario was too hard for me.
Mm.
Uh my brother played it a lot, so I like watched him play Mario. So like starting my history of watching people play video games.
Yeah.
But I love the Sonic games. Those were my jam back
Okay.
then.
Okay.
um but then I had a lull sort of through like high school, until WoW came out. And then like I loved that game. I still love that game, even though I
Um,
haven't played it in a long time.
I made a guild, and you should come play with us because it's a
I
cute little
totally should.
guild. And I'm just saying. But anyway, sorry. That's a story from a different time. But also, come play
Uh-huh.
with us,
Oh, it's so
Claire.
tempting.
Yeah,
I gotta put some other hobbies aside so I can play Season of Discovery. It's so fun.
it is fun. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I used to do little like LAN parties with my friends, like playing WoW,
Yes.
way back in the day. Like just like so many great memories playing that game. And like the transition for me from high school to college was really rough, like
Mm,
emotionally, and like having that game be kind of like a continuous thing from like high school to college, like
yeah.
was really helpful for me to like just, I don't know. I just remember like running around with my rogue killing crabs and just being like, this is the most comfortable I felt in like a month. It's like this is like my comfort zone. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. This idea of like games. Well, and I think this is true of like any art or medium, like helping us get through really hard transitions in life. What was it about? Not even necessarily WoW in particular, but just about games. Do you think that helped you during that time, or maybe was it
Um
WoW in particular? I don't know.
I think so. Like how I played WoW was on a PvE server, and I didn't really like group with people. I didn't do any end game stuff, so it was like honestly just a way to escape having to interact with people.
Mm,
I have like anxiety disorders, and it's really draining for me to like be around other people, even if I'm loving it.
yeah.
Like I can be having the best time and go home and just be like completely exhausted.
Yeah.
And I need like a lot of recharge time after hanging out with people.
Mm-hmm.
But like especially in college, like not knowing anyone, and having like I had a really horrible roommate in the dorms.
Mm,
So it was just like a nice space to like be alone, but also still like engaged. Like I didn't have to think about like all like I didn't have all the negative self-talk about like what is wrong with you? Everyone likes to go to parties. Like why do you like avoid people all the time? It was like immersive and I could just
yeah.
like take a break from my mental my mental health problems.
Yeah. Totally.
Um, yeah. Another game that comes to mind that like has helped me get through some hard time is Greece.
Hmm.
It's like a platformer, and uh it's like a watercolor art style, and it's about grieving.
Okay.
Um and it's pretty abstract. So you can kind of like map your own story onto it pretty easily. And like, but I've had a really hard time the last couple of weeks from some like fun medical discrimination.
Nice. Love that.
uh, and so like I just played through it's not too long of a game. You can do it in a few hours. So I just like played through that game and cried in my recliner.
Mm.
And I was just like really cathartic and like, because I played through it before, it wasn't like challenging, but it was just like a soothing experience. So if anyone's grieving
Yeah.
any kind of loss in your life, that one's really great
Grease
to play
like grease
through.
lightning or grease like the color
Oh,
gray?
the color gray.
Okay, so
Yeah, I was
GRIS.
calling it gris for the longest time because
Okay.
that's how you pronounce it in French.
Okay.
Until
Yeah.
I learned it was Spanish developers. I was like, oh, okay.
But it's cool that it's the same word, just the pronunciation is different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
All right, so GRIS for anyone that's interested in that.
yeah.
Cool. I'll definitely have to check it out. I think that something that's really beautiful about games that I think that people who don't play video games don't realize this really large spectrum of what games can mean, and so it's not necessarily Call of Duty shooting people and yelling at each other over, your headset. It can be something like that is really meaningful and personal, and I love, especially with indie games. I really love the advent of indie games and how indie developers are getting more and more recognition, because it opens up this world of like what video games can be, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you can tell different stories too,
Yeah.
like from different perspectives that don't get
Hmm.
told by like the AAA
Yes.
gaming companies,
Yes.
or they try and they get it so very wrong.
Yeah. Oh man.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. Hello, fellow young people. This is what you enjoy. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally.
Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned that, so before you started streaming, you were watching people on Twitch. What kind of streams did you enjoy when you like before you started streaming?
Um, I the person that comes to mind is Whimseed, and she's not streaming anymore, sadly. I miss her stream so much, and she was playing Mass Effect, which is like my WoW, like your WoW is for you.
Yeah.
Like I always have a run of Mass Effect going. So she was playing that game.
Hmm.
Uh, and I played through Mass Effect like so fast that I caught up to her, like
Okay.
where she was. I don't know why that's relevant to anything, but I did careen through that game because like I loved it so much.
Mm.
That wasn't your question though. Your question was who did I watch? So I watched her, and she had like amazing sound alerts and little like um she had one of those like active chats that I really enjoyed, where people like were just really kind and they just chatted between each other and with her, and it was just like a really comfortable vibe, and she was super kind.
Yeah.
um and then I started streaming because Strawberry Shortcake, uh, but she introduced me to Twitch, so she's the reason. I
Yeah.
even though this website exists, I started watching her to support her um, streaming endeavors. So that's kind of like how I entered it. And she's a death positive streamer, and she's also fat. And she's like one of the kindest people I know too.
Yeah.
And so she attracts that same kind of person. So um, I spent a lot of time in her streams too early
Yeah.
on.
She's great. Well, and people that have been here for a while and people who have not been here, Strawberry Shortcake was actually a guest on this show almost a year ago, I think. So around the same time last year. So if you don't know Strawberry Shortcake, go check her out. She's wonderful. But yeah, to find other fat streamers, to find other queer streamers, and then death positivity, I think is something that still not very many people know about, but something that I think is really important. Like it's cool. Yeah, it's cool to find like-minded people and people that can both support you and also inspire you. I think is something that's really, yeah, really special about a space like Twitch. Definitely.
For
I'm
sure.
curious about this kind of push and pull between really liking smaller spaces and smaller groups, and also really liking kind of observing or being a fly on the wall of like these bigger, more like chaotic kind of groups, and also this kind of desire for growth, but also not like, I don't know, I might be projecting because I have a similar kind of a thing ish, where like I definitely do want my stream to grow, and I like attention and recognition and validation and all the things that come with that. And at the same time, I would be really sad if I wasn't able to actually talk to the people that are hanging out in my chat. And so there's a limit there, right? So I'm curious for you with that conflict, like, can you talk about a little bit of that like desire for growth and at that same time desire to like keep it small?
Yeah, I think I'm with you that like if your chat gets to like a certain level, you can't really interact with everyone. Like maybe you can say hi to everyone when they come in, but you can't necessarily like respond to everyone's messages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would feel very good. Um, but also like my ego would just be like, all these people want to hang out with me. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think like at the end of the day, like I stream because I want that connection with other people. And
Yeah.
so like I have a really good time if there's just like even one person hanging out and chatting with me, and like I can really get to know them. So like I think I would be not very comfortable with like a big chat or like a lot of viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also my ego would just be like, I've made it. I don't know.
Would that be a bad thing?
It's so strange to want to like conflicting, like incompatible
Yeah.
things. So, um, yeah, I mean, if something strange happened and I all of a sudden became a giant streamer, um, I think I would be like excited about it in terms of like uh other people would hear like what it's like to be a fat white woman in the world, and like cuz I like to talk about those topics and like share my experiences with like medical discrimination um and I also like care very deeply about climate change. So like I think I would start to view it more as like a platform, I think
Mm.
is what I'm getting at,
Mm-hmm.
and less of like a um hangout, I
Yeah.
guess, you know?
Yeah. Totally. And I think there's room for both, but that makes a lot of sense in terms of like what it means to you and also what you can kind of do with it, I guess. Yeah, that's really interesting.
I think I'd be a lot more careful because I'd be like, I don't want to say anything wrong. And so all these
Mm.
people like think something that's like incorrect
Yeah.
because I said it on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think too that's something that like I don't know, talking about that like being a recovering perfectionist. I think something that's really difficult and something that I strive for is recognizing that I'm not going to get it right all the time. And being okay with that, and also being really open about that, so that in the moments where I do fail, I feel confident in being honest about that and owning it, rather than trying to like shy away from it and deny it and act like it's something else. And that's hard. Like I'm not necessarily good at that, and I think that like I don't know where I heard this recently, but someone said I don't like being wrong in public, which I like really identified with. I was like, me neither. It feels bad, and it happens often on stream. Not even necessarily with like socio-political things, although I think that's what I was getting at before. But like with gaming, like with playing a game and playing it wrong, or like doing the strategy that's not the most efficient or whatever, like it feels bad to be wrong in public. So I think that, like you said earlier, in terms of these kind of like areas for growth, that's one for me with streaming that like is an never ending journey, you know?
Yeah, totally. I think the combination of being like recovering perfectionist and having like anxiety brain.
Mm.
So like I'll probably remember this forever because this is how my brain works. It is not important. Like I misinterpreted word in French when I was playing Plague Tale, and I was like, "Oh, that's really funny. They named their flower that because it means this." And then like later, I looked it up, and I was like, "That word doesn't mean that."
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be embarrassed about that forever. Also, no one cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, absolutely zero people care that I like mistranslated that word.
Yeah. Well, Claire cares. Hey, got him. Uh, actually, weird segue. What is the story behind your screen name?
Yeah, so I started out on Twitch as Captain Clar, which was
Hmm.
a nickname I acquired in high school. Um, and mostly because like I struggled to like come up with names. I was just like, okay, here's one,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Not kind of knowing that I was gonna get really into Twitch or whatever, and people started calling me Captain, and I felt really uncomfortable with that because I don't like militaristic things, and it felt gendered to me.
Mm.
Uh, so it made me really uncomfortable, and I was like, okay, I've got to move on to something else. And uh, I was okay with putting my first name out there on the internet. Um, and cares comes from my dad passed away in February of 2020,
Mm.
and uh, he was a difficult man, to put
Yeah.
it lightly. And at one point, um, he said to me, like, "You care too much."
Hmm.
Um, and he meant it as an insult, and I took it as a compliment. And so uh, that just really stuck with me as like a moment where I recognize that I value that part of myself that
Yeah.
like cares a lot, and I try not to like dampen my empathy, which is really easy to do um, in the world we live in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I chose Claire Cares because it is alliterative and sounds nice, but also like it reminds me that like of that intention uh when I'm streaming and when I'm chatting or whatever, that like
Yeah.
I want to keep caring about, anyone I interact with. So,
I really love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a being a sensitive person in the world and being someone who is naturally so empathetic. Like it's such a beautiful thing, and also kind of going back to this idea of like uh being taking up space and being seen and all of that. Like I think it is one that gets squashed pretty hard. So it's really lovely to have people in the world that care, and I think we need people that care. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think are some of the biggest differences between your stream when you very first started versus your stream now?
Hmm. Well, all the equipment is different.
Okay, okay, yep.
Like I just started streaming straight from my PS5, so like
Nice.
controller, microphone, no camera,
Oh, wow.
uh just me talking in my living room.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I kind of realized like this is a thing I want to keep doing, and so I invested in like an actual gaming laptop because I just had like an old MacBook that couldn't play. I tried to stream Grease actually, and and everything in the world is like, no, no, your laptop is ancient.
yeah.
But yeah, so all the equipment's different. I think there's been a lot of continuity because I played through the Mass Effect series. So I did a Renegade Shep run. So if you're not familiar with Mass Effect, there's like kind of two morality paths you can take with your character, depending on the dialogue choices that you make. So there's Paragon Shep and Renegade Shep. And I'd mostly played through as Paragon, and I just wanted to see the other side of the game, uh, and play as Renegade Shep. And as I was doing it, like I started hearing from other Mass Effect players that like they were never able to get through the Renegade run because it's so heart-wrenching and you
Hmm.
have to do such terrible things
Yeah.
to get through it that most people who try it give up. Um, so I think my streams are pretty similar, honestly, to like how they've always been. I have like some emotes now, like a couple of sound alerts, but it's really hard to do all those like little things for your stream. Like I work full time. I'm not a tech person, so like everything is like a steep learning curve for me to like improve some kind of aspect of my stream.
Yeah.
So I really overestimated like what I could do
Yeah.
like as a streamer, because like I've mentioned a few times, like I love sound alerts. Like I would love to have a whole bunch of sound alerts and like fun channel point redemptions, but like it's hard to put
Yeah.
those things together and be like, this is a thing people are gonna associate with me. Um, yeah. And the emotes, I was like, I can draw my own emotes. Like, I only draw like sometimes, but like kudos to everyone who draws emotes because that is hard
Yeah.
work. They
Yeah.
look like they look so simple that like cocky me was like, oh, I can just draw my own. But like that simplicity takes a lot of effort, I have
Absolutely.
learned.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotes are interesting because it's like to be able to create an image that small that still reads is really, like you said, it's a really difficult feat. So yeah,
Hmm.
shout out to all the emote artists out there, because that is something. Well, and I think too, like going back to this idea of imposter syndrome, like to me, and I'm sure I've said this before on this stream, but like if you take the time to download OBS and figure out how to like plug in all of the things to actually like get it to show up and then actually go live, like you're a streamer, because that's effort, man. Like that doesn't just happen. Like that's some work. And like I think even for people that are the most tech savvy, like tech problems come up, and like even if you're really good at this, like that stuff takes time. It takes time to put together overlays and sound alerts and all of that stuff. So yeah, like there's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Absolutely. It also makes me feel kind of badass when I like pull up OBS and I'm like,
Yes.
look at this complicated software I know how to use.
Yes. I get so proud of like the silliest little things. I'm like, hey, like the other day
Yeah.
I made hype train alerts purely because this is silly. Twitch was like, here, have more animated emotes. And if you use Twitch's alert system, you get 2 extra ones, which like for the most part, I'm like kind of like, fuck you, Twitch. There's other people and things that have done this first. Like we're doing a charity stream right now. I'm like, no, I'm gonna use Tiltify. I'm not using Twitch's thing. But that's anyway. But Twitch has hype train alerts that other places like Stream Elements and Streamlabs, I don't think actually have that as an option. So I made one the other day and I was like, I'm so proud of it. I'm so excited. And at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if we're ever going to see it because I don't know if we're going to get a hype train, but I'm so proud of it. And I'm so excited. You know what I mean? Like, it's so silly.
It's
Twitch is
just
so
gonna add like a
silly.
whole nother amazing layer when it does
Yeah.
happen.
It'll be like
Yeah.
months down the line. And I'm like, guys, look at this thing I made.
Amazing.
It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
silly.
it feels like such a big sense of accomplishment when you like get those things to work
Yeah.
because there's lots of ways to break it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and there's ways to break it that like are out of your control too, like an OBS update, or even if you're on a PC, like a Microsoft update, like things like that will just like tweak things for no reason, but all of a sudden everything's not working. It's like, cool, great, love
Mhm.
that. Excited
Love
about
this
that.
half an hour I'm gonna spend doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, Speaking of emotes and things, how long did it take you to get to affiliate?
Oh, it took me a while. I think like 7-ish months. It was like last January.
Okay.
So I'm coming up on a year as
Yay.
affiliate. So yeah.
Congratulations. What was that like? Was it something that you really pushed for? Was it something that happened naturally?
It just happened naturally. I didn't like want to push for it.
Mm.
I mostly just wanted emotes,
Yeah.
honestly. Like if it weren't for that, and I still only have 3 of them, but like if it weren't for that, I would just like not even bother being affiliate so I didn't
Mm.
wouldn't have to have ads.
Yeah.
Uh but I just really wanted to have emotes and
Yeah.
channel points. You get those too when you become affiliate. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh yeah. So, and I figured like, you know, you don't really need them until there are people actually hanging out in your stream.
Totally. Yep.
But yeah, so
Has your relationship to streaming changed at all since becoming affiliate?
I don't think so. I'm not really trying to like monetize it or yeah, no, it was honestly only important to me in that I wanted to have emotes and
Yeah.
channel points.
Totally. Yeah.
Otherwise, like, yeah, the ads are a burden. I feel like
Yeah.
somehow they always land right when you're saying something like
Totally.
important or
Yeah.
at like a cutscene.
Of course,
Like, oh
and
my God.
with a game like Mass Effect, like that completely disrupt like the narrative, right?
Oh, Okay, the worst thing about Mass Effect is you cannot pause the cutscenes.
Oh, that is annoying.
So, like, if your ad break comes up during a cutscene, like, there's nothing you can do about it.
God,
Just
that
like, sorry,
sucks.
folks.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I would pause if I could, but
And that's
yeah.
why I just have pre-rolls on because like I would rather not disrupt the flow, and it's not like this like I understand why people do it, especially if you're making your living off of this, because Twitch really incentivizes you to have ad breaks. So I don't want to be in denial of that. I'm in a lovely position where that doesn't make or break me, you know. But even then, like with the pre-rolls, it's like taking someone coming in has to be patient and wait that like 30 seconds or that minute or whatever to then like join into what's happening. So yeah, the Twitch ads thing is very interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to find like the winning scenario. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are downsides to kind of any way you structure it,
Totally. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of people tend to find your streams?
For a while it was Mass Effect fans. There's like a whole contingent of like Twitch accounts that are Mass Effect related names. And so I like a lot of my followers, if you know Mass Effect, are like Spectre or Shepherd or something to that effect. Uh, and then they're usually people that I interact with otherwise. I'm not really. I always wonder like about like who are the lurkers, right? Who
Mm,
are like I'll always wonder
yeah.
because I, I don't know if you can even see who's lurking. Is there a way to do that?
So you can. I never do this while I'm streaming. I'll do it sometimes if I'm modding someone else's stream, just out of curiosity. You can click on users in chat, but that doesn't actually tell you who's lurking necessarily. And inevitably, there's like a weird list of bots that, like, at some point maybe came by and checked out your stream, but didn't. So, like, long story short, no, I don't think there is, but you can kind of take a peek behind the curtain a little bit. It just seems to be
Interesting.
inaccurate, you know?
Huh. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I've never wanted to look because
me
I'm like,
neither.
if you're lurking, you don't like you're lurking, that's
Yeah.
your business. But yeah, like I know the people who actually chat are people that I usually like have met other places.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always like, who are the lurkers? Who
Yeah.
are you? What is your deal?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
It is really interesting. Because I often lurk, but usually it's someone that I know and have chatted in before. Generally, either that or it's a really big streamer that I'm like I'm gonna get lost in the shuffle and there's no point in trying even. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna like
Uh-huh.
watch the chaos happen. Uh, so Winky, who is a streamer that I interviewed on here, who's a buddy of mine. He was talking about, and he's a bigger streamer. He's a partner, and he was talking about how, if you think about it, the majority of the people watching you generally are lurkers. And I never really thought about that before. Um, and his kind of like point with that was like, you know, they say that you need to be constantly talking and like talking to your chat and all of that. He's like, but if you think about it, considering that like the majority of the people watching you are lurkers, they're not necessarily looking for you to talk directly to them. They're looking to you to kind of do your thing, which I just thought was a really interesting perspective because it's like it goes so against like what the meta is in terms of like what you're supposed to do when you're streaming, you know?
Yeah, streaming is such a unique thing because like people don't expect you to like be like directly talking to them and like having specific content or things you want to say to them necessarily. Like I enjoy people's streams where they're just kind of like quiet most of the time and then like have a train of thought that they like say stuff a little bit, but you
Mm-hmm.
know like I like that vibe too, where like they're not talking the whole time, especially if it's a song with really good like beeps and bloops. Like
Mm-hmm.
if the
Mm-hmm.
game has good sounds,
Yeah.
that's really enjoyable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lurk in big streamers chats too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, like I feel like their chats like are so funny that I'm like, I don't have a better joke
Yeah,
than
I don't have
that,
anything to
like,
contribute to this
yeah,
conversation.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not as clever as all of you, so I'll just enjoy your
Yeah.
cleverness over here.
Well, and sometimes
Yeah,
I just don't want to put forth the energy of like talking in a chat too. Like
yeah,
there's also this piece of like and this is all in my own head, but I'm sure you get it. If I say something in chat, then I have to be there. And then if I leave, I have to like explain why I'm leaving, which again, you really don't. No one really cares. Like, it's funny to me when people are like, BRB. I'm like, you don't, you can just do your thing. But also, thank you for telling me. Like, I don't know, you know. But I feel that. I feel that in my soul where it's like, well, I made my presence known. Therefore, I need to make it known when I leave, kind of a thing. So, like, sometimes
yeah.
I lurk purely because I don't want to go through the rigmarole of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the emotional roller coaster of
Yeah.
chatting in someone's chat the first time where you're like, I was so brave. I chatted in your large chat, but also
Mm-hmm.
like no one laughed at it. Like you can't tell like what
You
people think
didn't
about
get
your chat.
it?
I'm
Yeah.
just like, or if they don't like say anything about your message too, then my like anxiety is like, oh no, I said something bad. Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Probably not.
They
Probably
probably
not.
just didn't see it
Yeah.
or didn't have anything to add.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. I always have that conversation about leaving too, where I'm
Hmm.
like, uh, am I like just unnecessarily drawing attention to myself if I'm
Right.
like, hey, I'm gonna go make dinner, but I'll be lurking.
Yeah.
Uh, but
I have
yeah.
that too. Yeah, I have that debate in my head too. And sometimes like if chat is kind of on a roll, then I feel like I can like make a quiet exit. Whereas if chat is not on a roll, I want to make it known that I'm leaving. Which again, this is all just
Yeah.
weird mental head trip stuff. But I, as the streamer, I do appreciate. I think I try to replicate what I need in my own stream, right? So if someone is chatting that has been the person kind of holding down chat for the day, I do appreciate when they say they're leaving because it helps me to be like, okay, they're gone now. It's quiet time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's something about that
Yeah.
that helps me like mentally like deal with their absence maybe. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So you're not like, hey, so and so, like, let me ask you this question, and then
Yes.
like crickets.
Yeah. Lucky for me, I have ADHD, and so I'll ask questions that never get answered, and I'll forget that I had asked the question, so it's fine. And or the other thing with that that's real fun is I'll ask a question, someone will answer it, and I'll be like, "What is the context for that? Why?" And they're like, "You asked me this." I'm like, "Oh, right. So sorry." Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I found that like chatting in Twitch, like avoiding not like she, her pronouns, but like other pronouns and
mm,
using like the actual noun for the thing
mm,
helps them like track if the
yes,
conversation's moved on or before they see the
totally.
chat.
Being more
Um,
specific with it. Yeah,
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 yeah, that helps. But I mean, I do that all the time where I'm like,
totally.
what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
And they're like, this is directly related to the thing that you said.
Like you
So
literally just said it. Well, and I think that as a viewer, we forget about the delay. There's always a delay between chat and when the streamer actually sees it, and so because of that, in your mind as the streamer, we've moved on to another thing, whereas in your mind as a viewer, we literally just said that, you know. So it's like it's one of those things that's just like it feels like a Zoom call where you're kind of like there's lag and you're like talking over each other, you know? Like there's a little bit of that,
yeah,
I think. Yeah.
it's kind of fun because like you can have like two conversations at the same time, right?
Mhm.
Like because of the lag, like you'll move on to the thing, but then you'll go back to the other thing, and then they'll
Yeah.
respond to the new thing that you said. So, uh, it's like juggling or something.
It
I don't know. It's kind of
is.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
You've talked a little bit about this, but what kind of streams inspire you?
Hmm. So I was super into this TTRPG playthrough called Death to Divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's put on by like all fat, all queer group of people. And that was the first time I ever saw just like a bunch of like fat people owning it and having fun together with it. And like they created this homebrew, their own world where like fatness wasn't a thing that defined you,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to live in it and be sexy in it and uh, just be a whole person.
Yeah.
And
Imagine.
I know, right?
The bar is so low. The bar is in the ground. But yes, absolutely. Like that's huge.
And that they were queer was really meaningful to me too, like kind of newly recognizing that side to myself. And
Yeah.
it was just like an amazing healing experience.
Mm.
That's like kind of hard to put into words, but
Yeah.
I feel like almost teary just like thinking about it. Um, so that just like really inspires me to be like not shy about being fat. I feel like I've shed a lot of the behaviors of like if you're fat, you know what I'm talking about, like trying to hide that you're fat,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
squeezing your legs together, putting a pillow in front of your stomach, hugging your arms together, just generally
Yeah.
not taking up space, wearing things that are flattering.
Yes. Yes.
Um so and they were just like so bold with the things that they would wear. And that was kind of the first time I'd really like seen that. Like
Mm.
they're wearing crop tops and like see-through things and like all the things that I've been told fat people aren't supposed to wear. They were like, I'm wearing this thing and loving it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I look amazing. So that that really inspired me. I'm not sure if it inspired me to stream like particularly because it's a TTRPG playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
But it did make me feel more confident that like there's an audience that wants to see fat people.
Yeah.
Like there's an
Absolutely.
audience for that, and there were a ton of people that watched that that stream. So it really like opened my eyes to like there's a whole community of fat people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to like hold you when you're hurting, to like inspire you with their fabulousness. Um, yeah, that was just like I'm so grateful to Twitch because I feel like it's done so much for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm also like F Twitch.
Yeah. Oh man.
Like,
There's space for all of the emotions.
yeah,
I
yeah,
fully agree and feel that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But representation matters. It's so important, and I think when we talk about fatness and taking up space and all of these things, like and in general, not just fatness, but when you have marginalized aspects of identity, it is revolutionary to exist, truly to just exist. So in a world that tells you you shouldn't exist, and in fact you need to exist differently, it's so cool and inspiring to see other people saying, nah, fuck that, I exist, so sorry, not sorry. Like there's something about that like I greatly admire and try very hard to embody because I think it's so important. And I think that for me, I've always existed in a fat body. And so from a very young age, and I've always kind of been a little bit rebellious too, so that helps. But from a very young age, I remember being like, nah, fuck this. Like I have this weird like memory in high school of hanging out with a group of friends, and one of my friends lived kind of by a lake, and we're going skinny dipping. And I remember that like all of them were like really shy about like getting naked, and I was like, fuck it, like my body is on display already, people will already judge it, so why not just get naked? And I remember a friend of mine who's thin bodied was like, that was so fat, so brave, right? Which is one of my favorite things. But there's something to be said about just like owning your body and just existing because you're told not to,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. I love that for you.
It was just
It's incredible.
for me. I think it was a way to like have agency and autonomy, and I think it was recognizing it kind of, it's a double-edged sword. I'll work it out in therapy, but it's kind of that thing of like, you can't fire me, I quit, and I tend to do that a lot of like, you can't reject me if I'm just here and I'm naked, and like, so
Uh-huh.
there's a positive and a negative to it depending on the
Yeah.
context, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so fun. It took me a long time
Yeah.
to get there. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't even know if I'm there
That's
yet,
okay.
but
That's, yeah.
yeah,
Everybody's different
like
and everyone's at a different part of that journey too, you know?
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I try to be honest about like the internalized fat phobia that I experience and
Mm-hmm.
like not to get into it too much where I'm like triggering people um because like I had eating disorders and I know that like it can just be the smallest thing
Yeah.
that can like re-trigger those like behaviors or those thoughts. So
Yeah.
I try to be conscious about that, but also be honest about like I like some days I hate my body and I'm so mad that
Yeah.
I have to exist in a body that's like so highly scrutinized and
Yeah.
I'm like I just want to be invisible.
Yeah.
Like I I just want to not have to think about this as a thing. Like can you
Absolutely.
imagine just like being a straight size person and going through the world and like people are just like not judging your body?
I don't know what
I
that would feel
can't.
like. Yeah, no, I really can't. I mean, and I think that you make such a good point, and this is where, like, for me, like, body neutrality is so much more powerful than body positivity. And for me, like, I'm much more I'm about fat positivity because it really flies in the face of like everything we've been taught. But more important than that to me is fat liberation. But like I think that like like there's so much that's real about that. I think that like embodiment sucks for a lot of people, whether you're fat or you're chronically ill or all sorts of other things. So it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, like I really struggle if I'm feeling pain in my body anywhere because of our social conditioning. Immediately my brain goes like, oh, it's because you're fat, right? And I really have to fight that voice and be like, no, thin people have knee pain too, you're okay, but like it's really, it doesn't mean that we're perfect with it all the time. I think it's okay and actually really like important to recognize that there are days where we hate our bodies and we hate existing because it's really hard existing in a world that says you're wrong for being the way you are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, like my uh I've talked about this on my stream, but my mom used to be fat and she got gastric bypass surgery. And so she's for now not fat.
Mhm.
uh
Mhm.
but she gifted me a seatbelt extender.
Mhm.
She's like, I don't need this anymore. Maybe you need it. And I was like so sad about the shame I felt
Mm.
about receiving that gift, I guess.
Yeah.
Um and then I tried it and I was like, whoa, it's in the right place.
Yeah.
It's not like choking me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I like just do this before? Like there's so many like discomforts that you experience as a fat person and
Yeah.
like the shame keeps you from like doing anything about it. Like
Yeah.
it's embarrassing to need a seatbelt extender or like the chairs at my mother-in-law's house, her dining room chairs have arms, the bane of
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
wide-hipped fat people.
Yep.
um uh and for the longest time I would just suffer.
Yeah.
Like I would just get like those bruises on my legs and it would be like hard to enjoy a meal because my body's just being like trash compacted
Mhm.
into this
Mhm.
chair. And then eventually I was like, I'm just going to grab a different chair from another room that is comfortable for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I could have done that so many years ago,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But the shame of like needing that accommodation uh kept me from doing it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I love those moments where you're just like, "Oh, wait. You can be comfortable in a fat body."
Yeah,
Right?
it's true. You just have to really fight for it. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that's really taxing.
Absolutely.
Because there are moments where I don't have the energy to fight for it, but then what that means is I become long suffering and then I'm cranky about it and blah blah blah. And so like it is one of those things that's like it's so much better in the long run to just ask for what you need, but it's also really hard. It's not always that simple, you know? But yeah, like
Mhm.
there are things in the world that we can ask for that will be accommodating and we're worthy of that. I think that's the biggest thing, is
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that like you're worthy of being comfortable existing in a fat body. And so I think that ties into that shame piece a lot, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because so many things tell us that like you'll be worthy of that when you're thin.
When you change. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You get to be
Like
comfortable when you change who you are. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always been fat, so
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. It's one of those things too that like, so as everyone's, you know, relationship with fatness and thinness is a little bit different. I almost think sometimes we're getting off topic, but I think it's okay. But like I almost think sometimes it's easier for me as someone who has always been fat versus someone who has at some point in their life been thin and then became fat. Like I think that in some ways is a harder road because you've felt what it's like to be normal and you've felt what it's like to have access to comfort automatically. And so that, because that's never been something I've been granted, I think it's easier for me to cope with that reality because it's a harsh reality. Does that make sense?
yeah, that definitely makes sense to me. I think moving into fatness would be such a harsh experience. Like I, like have a lifetime of coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that I can't just like walk into a store and they'll have a swimsuit
Yep.
in my size. So like if I'm going on a trip to the coast, if I forget my swimsuit, I'm not swimming.
Yep.
Like it's that simple.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you don't have that experience, you might think like, oh, I can just pop over to Fred Meyer and like buy a swimsuit and it'll be
Yeah.
fine. And then you have that harsh of like, uh-uh,
Yeah.
it's not for
Yeah. It's
you.
so true. Yeah. Yeah. I think you said it really well. This idea of like having a lifelong uh, journey of having like coping skills that maybe other people don't. And this idea of
Yeah.
moving into fatness like kind of goes back to your clip. I think this idea of like at some point, I think it was oh gosh. I'm not sure which streamer, and the name is going to come to me in a minute, I'm sure. But she had talked about this idea of like, inevitably, we will all move into disability at some point in our lives. Whether or not you're disabled now, we will all move into disability at some point. And so, if we recognize that, it's really important then to face these like ableist ideologies that have been thrown at us now. And I think this idea too of like, demanding comfort and demanding accommodation is really, really important and necessary. And also hard. It's not easy to do.
Yeah. I've heard that before too, that we all move into disability. And I think that's been really powerful for me to kind of,
Amanda Speaks. Sorry, the name just came
oh,
to me.
good.
Continue. I'm so sorry.
Yes. Um, yeah. So yeah, just thinking of accommodations as being for everyone,
Hmm.
I think is really powerful. Because we are all going to need accommodations and I need accommodations now.
Yeah.
um, so
It truly makes the world a
it's
better place for everyone, not just
right.
for the people who need it, quote unquote. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Like ramps are good for people who like roll their ankles and
Yeah,
need to use crunches for a little while.
absolutely.
Um,
I don't think I know anyone that would argue against having bigger seats on airplanes. You know what I mean? Like I don't think anyone's gonna complain about that. Like, except for the people that are
right.
making money off of it, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other thing. Um, well, talking about fatness and anxiety and mental health kind of stuff. Are there other aspects of maybe your identity or just your background or your kind of cultural upbringing that come into play with your streaming?
Hmm. This is one of those moments where I'm like, I'm not an interesting person.
You're very interesting. I beg to differ.
um, I mean, like, I think my stream is like just very white. Like, I have very white sensibilities in the
Hmm.
sense that, like, I'm from a very white state that, like, had, until not that long ago, laws on the books excluding Black people from
Mm,
living here. And like, uh, I've never lived somewhere that wasn't like majority white. And so uh, like I believe in like anti-racism and anti-racist principles, and but like I guess I'm answering with like what I'm not, but like
that's okay.
you hold the anti-racism tag,
Hmm.
which is amazing. I feel like I can't hold that tag in the sense that like I've never had any validation from like people of color that like I've earned it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um so like I would feel really bad if someone came into my stream and felt like I advertised it as safe for them and then it wasn't safe for them, because like I'm sure I mess up so much more than I know. So I'm just like, anyway, it's just like not
Yeah.
white in an exclusionary way, just like white in terms of like that's where I've existed.
Yeah. I think
Um,
white and self-aware of the fact that that is a limited point of view that you come from because of who you are, right?
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
and I think whiteness as an identity gets erased, like where like white people aren't comfortable for the most part, like saying like I'm white and that is like an identity because we're taught that that's the
mm,
default.
yeah.
And it's like this is making me really uncomfortable to like call out like I am white and I am
Yeah.
a white person stream, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to name that because that is who I am, and it is an important part of my identity because I've
Totally.
benefited from all those privileges
Mhm. Mhm.
unearned. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I whiteness is really interesting because it implies the absence of ethnicity, which I think is interesting in terms of this idea of having like a cultural identity. And I think it goes back to what you just said about a white being in the United States, and in Western Europe and other places, like the dominant culture, and what is the on the scale of like social acceptability, that is the color of skin that is socially acceptable, right? So there's a lot to that, and I think it's really important as a white person to recognize that you're going to have certain biases and certain areas of blind spot with regard to privilege because of being white, right? And that in and of itself is being anti-racist, because you're coming from a place of recognizing that. I think to me, anti-racist isn't a label that I was given by people of color or black people because it's not their job to validate me or give me a gold star,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's great.
But being anti-racist to me is a lifelong commitment to doing exactly what you were just talking about, of like recognizing like this is an area in which I have privilege, and this is an area in which I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm white, right? And so in that, then that creates room for, because I don't have those experiences and because I have had access to all of these things because of my whiteness, I need to recognize that so that when there is an opportunity to uplift black voices and the voices of people of color, I can do that. And I think too, for me, like part of using the anti-racist tag, I want to create a space where other white people who are afraid of being white and being wrong, right? It's like, I don't want to offend and I don't want to say the right thing. It's like, we can talk about that in a space where it's not necessarily going to negatively impact black people or people of color, and it's not going to put the burden of education on them. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah.
But it's not me saying I'm very against this is my own thing. I'm very against using the safe space tag. I'm very against it. I don't get to decide that this is a safe space for you, right? So if you are black or indigenous or a person of color and you come in here and you feel safe, that makes me so happy because I want it to be a safe space for you, but I don't get to determine that. As a fat person, this is not necessarily a safe space for other fat people because a lot of fat people are on their own weird journey with their relationship to the word fat and don't know what to do with that, right? And so like a safe space isn't something I get to define, but I do get to define what I believe in this space and what I want to cultivate, I guess, in this space. I don't know. That's my take
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I've never felt comfortable with the safe space tag because I'm just
I
like,
hate it.
safe for who?
Safe for who? Right. What do you mean safe?
Like, I've been in streams that are like, they're like LGBTQ, like, and they say like safe space, but then they're super ableist. And
Right.
I'm like,
Right. Oh man, the mental health tag is another one that I'm like, what do you mean mental health? Like, what are you talking about? And there are people that use that tag because their stream is specifically about talking about mental health, right? I understand that. But a lot of people just use it to be like, I'm cool with mental health. And yet say very like ableist, very like saneist terminology that like again, we're not going to get it perfect all the time. I certainly don't get it perfect all the time, but that's also where it's like why are you using that tag? What is it about that tag that like feels like an accurate descriptor of who you are and what you do here? You know what I mean?
yeah, mental health is like such a neutral term. Like, it's just
I believe in
like you
mental
would put
health.
like physical health. What about it?
I don't know.
Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. And I think what they like honestly like because I use like bipolar and neurodivergent and I use all of these things because it's part of my framework and how my brain works and also like people have come in and been like, hey, I'm bipolar too, or hey, I have
Oh, that's
ADHD too,
awesome.
right? So to me it's kind of this thing of like this is who I am. Like fat liberation is one that I use, and the trolls love it. They love fat liberation in that they love to like be like, what is fat liberation? And I'm like, I finally just made a command for it. I'm like, here, go read other resources and leave me alone. Which again, I'm happy to talk about it, but with an audience that wants to talk about it, right? But yeah, I just like I use those tags for better or for worse, not for discoverability purposes so much as to say like this is the space that I've created. This is who I am. So if you're cool with that or you're curious about that, you can come hang out. And if you're not, there's the door. You know what I mean? Like for better or for
Yeah.
worse. Like I think that I'm so I'm so like not even abrasive, but I'm just like I'm very like take it or leave it. To my own detriment, I think sometimes, but like it feels like armor, I think, in this space too, that like I really need sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah. I love the fat liberation tag. I haven't gotten trolls yet, but I have like, the dream of like somebody coming in and being like, on a whim, I searched for fat liberation and I found you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I love the idea of having like a little growing group of people who use the fat liberation tag because
Yeah.
I'll just like randomly throughout the day search for it because I'm just like trying to find other people because
Yeah. I see a lot
there
of
are
people
not a
using
lot of
the
people
fat
using that
tag, which
tag.
is cool. And I thought about using the fat tag for a while, but fat liberation spoke to something bigger than that to me that like it's an ideology that I think a lot of people don't know exists, or if they do, they don't know that it exists in this more like formalized way, I guess. Like it's something that it's like once you know what it is, it's like, oh, fat people are worthy of dignity and respect. Cool, I'm on board. You know what I mean? Like it's that simple and yet,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my favorite tag
Yeah, it's a
for
good
sure
one.
that I support.
Yeah. What
You
other
asked
tags do
about
you
like
use? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
asked about like what other type parts of my identity are important to me, and I talk
Yeah.
about having anxiety a lot because it affects like every aspect of my life, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
uh, it keeps me from doing things that I want to do. It like drains a lot of my energy, um, and I want other people to feel like their anxiety is valid because it's really easy to feel like, oh, if I just like sucked it up,
Mhm.
like it's really hard to invalidate your like own experience of things and um like having anxiety for me like manifests like in my stomach, so I feel like sick to my stomach a lot, and like the confluence of like that with the fat phobia in my head is like, oh, that's probably because of your fat and you don't eat how you're supposed to.
Right.
Uh and not just like a very normal symptom of having anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Like uh it's it shapes like it's shaped like my career aspirations, it shapes how I socialize. It demands to be accommodated
Yeah. Yeah.
constantly. So I just want other people to feel like what you're feeling is like real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is as real as stubbing your toe. Like it is a thing that is happening to you. And like if you just need a space to like bitch about it, like this can be your space to do that. Like I really welcome other people like, with like content warnings, kind of sharing like their struggles with whatever kind of neurodivergence they're experiencing. Mine is anxiety, but
Yeah.
you know, there's a
Yeah.
whole rainbow of neurospacey out there. So,
Definitely.
um, yeah.
Well, and for you, like being someone that has anxiety, like what does what does anxiety and maybe like pressure with regard to streaming kind of look like for you?
Um, Anxiety makes you feel really small. Like I like collapse into myself, and it makes it hard for me sometimes to have like that ongoing dialogue, especially if chat is quiet.
Yeah.
Um, and I've learned some coping skills to try to like pull myself out of that, but sometimes I can't, and it manifests in like sometimes my stream ends early.
Yeah.
Like sometimes my anxiety says no, not today.
Yeah.
And like honoring that and respecting that and uh is really hard to do because it's really disappointing.
Yeah.
Like cuz
Yeah.
you're like I like get ready for this thing and I want to do this thing that I normally think is fun,
Yeah.
but sometimes your your brain chemistry says no. So you
Totally.
just got to like accept that and I don't know, go pet the cat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so yeah, on those days where it's like, nope, the anxiety brain is here, so we're gonna go ahead and leave it. What do you do in those moments to kind of take care of yourself?
um I don't have a lot of good self-care around
That's
that,
okay.
honestly.
Yeah.
I was just talking about this in therapy.
Nice.
She was like,
Hell
"You
yeah.
need to work on those." Like, she's like, "How do you relax?" And I'm like,
What is relax? How does relax?
like by playing really challenging video games. That's what
Yes,
you meant, right? That's how I
absolutely.
relax.
It's the stress we
Like,
choose.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I usually just go up to bed.
I mean, that is a way to cope though, like sometimes it's
Yeah.
what you need. Like especially you've talked a little bit about being introverted and kind of social battery. Like I think for me sometimes it's like I just need to like lay down in a dark room. It's not even that I like need to sleep. I just need like sensory notness, if that makes sense. Like I just need lack of
Absolutely.
sensory input right now.
I just discovered CBD.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, is it
I'm
helpful for
like,
you?
it's so nice. My husband also has anxiety. So we
Okay.
just like, we'll take a little like chunk of time and be like, we're going to put on it's like nature sounds or seed on the TV and we're going to like drink our little CBD drinks and like
Nice.
just feel like things are okay for a minute. A
That's
minute. So
great.
I just started using that and I'm like, oh man, this is the secret no one tells you about.
That's
It's
awesome.
I don't know, it probably doesn't work for everyone, but
Sure.
and it might be a placebo effect. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah. Hey, if it works,
Like
it works. Yeah, that's great.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess I have a couple of things
You
I
do,
do
yeah.
thinking
Sometimes
through
it's just
it.
hard to like label them. But yeah, those are
Uh-huh.
coping mechanisms for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twitch chat, we're going to turn it over to you in just a minute here. So if you have any questions for Claire, go ahead and type them up into chat and we'll address those in just a minute. So please feel free. Let us know what you're thinking and what questions you have. Claire, what is the line, or maybe what are some differences between your personal self and your streamer self?
Oh man. Sometimes I feel like we're two completely different people. Like I feel like such an imposter at work, and I actually like I just got like a promotion that I didn't ask for cuz
Congratulations. That's great.
but uh it's like a temporary one. We'll see.
Do you mind
Anyway,
saying what you do?
so I let me see if I can share in a way that doesn't dox myself.
Yeah, I don't dox yourself. Yeah.
So I work in government budgeting,
Okay.
uh, which sounds really boring, but my like specific niche is that I write about our budget uh, for like legislators and the governor and other like decision makers.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, so I don't do any number crunching. I write about other people's work,
Okay.
basically.
All right.
So,
Nice.
uh, yeah, and so like that is like it's like very kind of like serious button up environment. State government is attracts like a certain kind of person, usually risk averse, because you are like, I can have this job for 30 years. Which is such a gift, honestly. But yeah, I feel like I have this job title, especially now, where I'm like, but that's like an adult job.
Mm.
Like I'm a kid who plays video games on the internet.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know why you're giving me this kind of responsibility because like on the inside I'm just like this weird girl streaming.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's who I really am,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like when I'm streaming, I feel like that's who I really am, and then like at work I'm like acting.
Yeah. Totally.
You know?
That makes sense to me.
I'm like not having to go to the office is so nice.
Ooh, are you remote?
I'm 100%
Nice.
remote.
Oh, that's great.
So, oh man, the energy burden that like
Mm.
that the office environment requires is just like if you're anxiety and introvert, like it's a lot.
I
So
believe it. Yeah.
now I have to act less now, and I really appreciate
That's
that.
great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's any similarities between your work and streaming?
Hmm. I all I can think of is like Zoom meetings or like
Yeah. I
you
was
know like
wondering, like,
my
being
tech
on the
always
computer all the
works.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like because I'm streaming, I can like help people fix their audio issues
Yeah.
and stuff like
That's
that.
true. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the streaming experience versus my work is just like such a 180 that like I don't know. I feel like I have two people living inside of me
Yeah.
because work is just so different from what I do for fun or who I am,
Yeah. No, that makes
which is a
sense.
shame because it's like everyone should get to show up authentically at work.
Yeah.
And the more marginalized identities you have, the less likely you are to be able to show up safely
Totally.
as yourself at work.
Yeah.
So, but that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of like hobbies or passions do you have outside of streaming and work?
uh, During COVID, I learned how to play the recorder.
Oh, okay.
I was like, this instrument is $7.
Hell yeah.
and and there's like YouTube videos now. So I just learned how to play a recorder and I got really into it.
Cool.
So now I own like 4 recorders
Okay.
and like of varying sizes, and I mostly like to play like Celtic or Irish music. Medieval music is like really cool too. Like the
Mm-hmm.
idea of playing something that someone played hundreds of years ago, like you have this connection to like a human being who's like so ancient,
Yeah.
is really cool. Uh, so, and it's just like such a weird instrument. Everyone always like, everyone knows what it is, but they also don't know what it is.
Totally. Because I think for me, the automatic thought that I have is like, oh, the cheap plastic thing that we make fifth graders learn, and they can play hot cross buns really poorly. Like, what a
Yep.
cool instrument. Yeah. But no, I can
Yeah.
see it. I saw this guy on TikTok doing. It's not quite the same, but he was doing a penny whistle.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like songs. It's a similar idea, and it was one of those things where I was like, this guy is shredding, just like absolutely shredding on penny whistle. It was very cool. So I'd
Yeah.
love to know more about your kind of recorder journey.
Yeah. It's I used to play piano. I'm
Okay.
gonna Yeah. I haven't played in a while. And I did like the formal piano education where you learn like
Okay.
music theory and whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
which is mostly just like left my brain. But
Fair.
it did give me the gift of being able to like read sheet music.
Mhm.
Um and like I always struggled with piano. Like my left hand is just like completely uncooperative.
Mm.
Like it will not play a different rhythm for my right hand.
Yeah.
Like that is like magic. I don't know how people do that. So it's like starting in on the recorder and being like, I only have to play one note at a time. Whoa. Like
Yeah.
I just have to like do this one melody and not like do a melody and like chords and a different like just too much. The piano
Yeah.
is too much for me. But like and like there's such a kind of instantaneous connection between like your body and the instrument
Mhm.
because it's like it's just a piece of wood, right, that's been carved
Right.
in a certain way. There's not like a bunch of barriers between you and like the sound that comes out. And
Yeah.
so it's so much easier to be expressive,
Mhm.
um which is something I never felt able to do with the
Yeah.
piano, which
Yeah.
obviously you can be expressive with the piano, but I couldn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's so great about instruments is that they all kind of have lives and personalities of their own, and so I think you connect with the ones you connect with, and so if it's not piano, that's okay because there's things like recorder and other instruments that probably fit more with who you are and how your hands work and all of these things, you know?
Yeah, I wish that people kind of encouraged me to try different instruments, like
Yeah.
I just felt like pigeonholed into playing like the piano that I didn't search out other things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're struggling with an instrument, it could just be the wrong instrument for you.
Totally. Yeah.
You could be great at music, but you just haven't found your instrument
God, that's
yet.
such a good point. Yeah. Yeah, that is something that we should instill more in people, I think. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Also, there's lots of great video game music that you can play with the
My
recorder.
God, video game music just in general, like I love like there was a time in which I was like it'd be really cool to compose for like films or video games. Like there's so much good music out there. So that's fun. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that you could do it on recorder so well.
Yeah, cool. There's a lot of like medieval music because it's like a fantasy setting, right?
That makes
Like
sense. Yeah,
I play
totally.
stuff from like The Witcher 3,
Okay. Hell yeah.
like that kind of stuff. So it's like my hobbies can kind of come
Oh,
together.
that's great. How cool. All right, recorder stream when? Like no, never.
Oh.
Totally fair.
I
Not
have
a
tried recording myself, but like I can't figure out the audio.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really hard.
Recorder would be a tricky one that way, definitely. I don't know how you would go about it. Because does the sound, do you know, does it come from the finger holes or does it come from the bottom of the instrument?
It comes from, I think I could be wrong.
Yeah.
There's like a part right on the mouthpiece
Okay, so it comes from
that
the,
is like slanted and really thin.
yeah.
It's like the reed kind of part
Gotcha.
of it. Like that's the most important part of a recorder not to damage because then you just throw it away.
Okay.
So, and like there
Interesting.
are some notes that you play where you cover the bottom hole.
Really? Oh my God, I know nothing about Recorder. Now I'm super curious.
It's really fun.
I'm gonna go down a YouTube rabbit hole later.
They're
Yeah.
really cheap. You can get it really cheap. So if you want to
Okay.
like noodle around on it, like less than $10.
Love it. Love it. Let me turn over to Twitch here for a second. Let's see. We have a lot of bi love, for the record, and just talking about queerness and feeling valid and I don't know, seen in that. Fenaria says, I feel that so hard. So you're not alone. I think a lot of people feel that for sure.
Yeah.
And let's see. Arietta says that number go up feel is hard to ignore. It really is. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
I think that in my head, there's like a certain number of like average viewers where I will feel like a real streamer. I think that's like 10, which is like really low, right?
It's really
and like the
not.
scale of but like if 10
That puts you in the
people
top 2% of Twitch.
wanna
Did you know
hang out?
that?
What?
Yeah, that's so that's huge. People don't realize this, and I feel the need to like, and this is not a you thing, but this helps me stay grounded. That literally puts you in the top 2% of Twitch if you have a consistent 10 people. The overwhelming majority of people that stream on Twitch stream to no one. So the fact that you've gotten to affiliate, don't get me wrong, like small streamer vibes, absolutely. I feel that. But I think it's really important to remember that like it is very difficult and very special to get even 2 or 3 people to hang out consistently. And like something that like helped me that someone said, they're like, imagine that there's 2 or 3 people that want to hang out with you in your home while you're playing video games consistently. And it's like, oh, that's kind of wild, actually, when I think about it as being like real human beings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. I just think it's really important to recognize that like an average of 10 is actually pretty huge in Twitch land. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to remind myself like to feel the joy of like another human being is like, I want to listen to you talk while I cook my dinner.
Yeah.
Like someone listening to me talk while they cook their dinner, like improves their day.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Right?
Like that's so cool. And just to remind myself to like feel that, to like sit with that and like not focus so much on like the numbers and to focus on like the human connection.
Yeah.
Because everything in our society tells us not to do that.
Yeah.
Capitalism is like all numbers must grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and Twitch really throws it in your face too. Twitch very much is like, look at all these numbers. So yeah, that the number go up feeling I think is something that's really, really difficult, and also it's hard. It's just one of those things.
It makes it hard to talk to other people about streaming. Like most people in my life don't know that I stream because I don't want them to show up.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
I think a lot of people probably get that.
Yeah, I love my parents. I regret telling them about my streaming in some ways. I love them, and I love that they're supportive, but also I regret it sometimes. If you're lurking, I love you, Mom and Dad. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, because I have my first name and my username, I'm kind of like, they might somehow stumble on it, but really unlikely. But I feel like other people in my life, if I was like, yeah, I stream, and they like, the question is like, well, how many people watch you? Like that's the most obvious question.
Absolutely.
That like for the few people I've like told that I stream, like that's the question I get, and I'm like, well,
yeah.
Like I wish it was a different question, like why do you stream, or what do you stream, or something that I have control over.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if as much as I don't want it to, it makes me like not want to tell people, because I know that that's the first question they're going to ask, and people are kind of dismissive of like, you only stream to 2 people.
Right. Right.
Like,
The numbers, for whatever reason, give it legitimacy, which it, that to me shows what a huge disconnect there is between people who stream and people who don't in terms of understanding of motivation and what it feels like to stream, you know?
hmm I think a lot of people don't understand that Twitch is like a back and forth. It can be.
Yeah.
There's all styles of streaming, but like Twitch is like about community more than other streaming platforms in my
Mm-hmm.
experience. So I think that people who haven't experienced streaming at all don't understand that like it's not just you and a camera. It's like a back and forth and getting to know people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think that people that aren't familiar with it equate it with YouTube. Um, and it's just different because you're interacting with people in real time versus YouTube, people are watching it on their own time and you don't necessarily have that interaction, right? And so it's just, it really is just a different platform that I think is misunderstood by outsiders, you know?
but also it's like our thing.
It's our thing. Keep it
Yeah.
sacred. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. Arietta also says the whole "this is punishing, but I make it look easy" is such a masculine coded power trip and seems so silly. It's so annoying that having fun seems so feminine coded. Beautifully said. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so true.
Arietta is always she kind of coming in with the great insights. I
Arietta's
love
great.
her.
We're gonna have to have
Uh,
Arietta on the show at some point here.
uh, yeah. Also, that makes me sad for masculine people. Like
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
like y'all are missing out.
It's
On like
true.
the fun.
It's
the
true.
suffering-free fun
Yeah.
that you could be having.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that speaks to toxic masculinity on a whole and kind of goes back to this thing where it's like feminism and liberation from patriarchal bullshit benefits everyone, not just femmes and women and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We all suffer under patriarchy.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Wondergoon has a recommendation for you for a chill,
Ooh.
fun game. Glitch Hikers, The Space Between, is an interesting self-exploration style game. It's on Steam and Epic and all of that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Glitch
Hitchhiker. I
Hikers.
haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, I know. Wondergoon has mentioned it before, so it's one of those that I'm like, I gotta check it out at some point here. Let's see. What else? Fanaria says, if I say something in chat, I have to be there. Yes. It's accurate. It's really
Well,
feels like
in
that.
your stream, you have questions for fun, so
That's true. Fun, I do need you there often. But it's also always okay for you to go live your life and not be there, for the record. And then, yeah, this idea of what if they ask me a question and I'm AFK and then I just seem rude? This like fear of being rude or impolite, I think, is something that plagues a lot of us.
yeah.
Let's see. Arietta says, yes, 1/5 of the U.S. population is disabled. It's so poorly represented. It's hard. And it's so ingrained that able-bodied people don't need accommodations when the fact is they are the only one receiving accommodations in the majority of cases. That's a really great point. That's really interesting.
Wow, that really just like flips everything upside down for me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That was a banger.
Yeah, I'm like speechless. Like I have nothing to add.
Damn. Yeah, totally. Yep. Fenaria says a safe space as an aspiration versus safe space as a declaration. Totally. That's I think how I feel about my streams, and I think that's what I've experienced in yours, is that it's a space that you want to be safe, but also you're not telling people like, hey, this is safe for you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's cool too, like, again, going back to the idea of taking up space, I think that, like, I very much believe in this kind of like show me, don't tell me idea. So it's like by you just showing up and being who you are, being a caring person, being someone who is queer and someone who is fat and white and all of these different things, like you showing up as who you are will make it safe for people, even though that's not necessarily your like first intention, maybe, or I don't know. Not even, I mean, it's your intention, but like, do you get what I'm saying, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I hope people feel that way.
Yeah.
Um, I'm always learning new things, and uh, I I don't know. I think that I just have a fear still that I'm like harming people unintentionally.
Yeah.
And like I think maybe I don't say it enough that like if you feel like I'm saying or doing something that's causing you harm, like whisper me about it if you're comfortable. Like
Yeah.
I am happy to take that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Cuz like I want to have fun, and I don't want you to feel like you have to be harmed in the process, cuz I
Yeah.
feel like that when I watch media that's like all fat phobic, that I have to be harmed to enjoy this media.
Mm.
Um, and I don't want people to have that experience when they watch my streams.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really great point. And again, it speaks to the nature of Twitch, where this can be a dialogue. This can be a space where we talk about it, and it doesn't have to just be this thing that like I don't get to talk to people who make TV shows or movies that harm me, right? But yeah, in this
Right.
Twitch space, we can negotiate it and have conversations around it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Rastelor says, I work for the state government where I live. I've been working there for 23 years. Even with that amount of experience, I've got to a level where I feel like I've been put higher than my station. So, in other words, you're not alone in feeling like a fraud, but you're probably being way too hard on yourself.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And like solidarity with
Yeah,
like state workers.
solidarity. Absolutely.
It's such its own thing.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Um, let's see. Thanks, Twitch chat. I really appreciate all your feedback and your questions and things. If you have any more, feel free to put them into chat. Um, let's see. We've talked a little bit about day job and things. What about surprises? Like, what are some things that have maybe surprised you since you started streaming?
Hmm. That people show up at all.
Mm.
I don't know. I felt like there was when I first started, I was like, there's no way that people are gonna like show up and hang out with me while I um play video games.
Yeah.
Uh and that I like it so much.
Yeah.
I it felt like it was a big push for me to do it, especially on camera, which is important to me about being visible. So
Yeah.
even though it would be like cozier for my anxiety to be off cam all the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to me to have it
Yeah.
on. But yeah, like I have regulars.
It's
Like,
cool,
get
right?
out, get out of
Yeah.
here. Uh, yeah, it's just so fun. And like, you have a good stream and just I just feel like like I feel the dopamine, like
Mm.
I just feel like so uplifted by it. And like by good stream, I mean like uh if someone's like around to chat like kind of most of the time and the game is really good and you're just like feeling it. Um for some reason that feels like so much more amazing than if I'm just like alone playing a video game,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
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 Love
So I
it.
like it a lot more than I thought I would. I would. I don't know.
That's
But I
really
still did
cool.
it anyway.
Yeah. That's great. Why do you think people come to your stream? Why do you think people like are regulars and wanna hang with you?
um I think people appreciate that I'm like authentic.
Hmm.
I don't And it's fine if this is your thing, but like I don't put on a persona. Um, I just try to really come as who I am, and I invite other people to share who they are. So
Mm-hmm.
I think some people come because they can just like talk about whatever they want, and I'll be like, okay, let's go down that road.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like whether it's something like whether they're talking about like the brewery that they work at, or they're talking about like it's really hard to have ADHD because like these, you know, like whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people feel invited to be themselves too. Um, and then my reactions when Renegade Shep would do something horrible.
Yeah. 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 Love that.
Because I love, he's so terrible to everyone, and I love all the characters on that team, or on that team, on that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, strong
Amazing.
reactions to him being terrible.
Which is always, yeah, as a viewer, very fun to watch, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Do you have any like pre-stream or post-stream rituals, things you do to get ready for stream or things you do to kind of wind down after?
I don't have a ton of time for like pre-stream rituals because I have an hour between like when work ends and when my streaming time is. And so
Mm-hmm.
like I'm usually just like shoving food in my face and like hooking up all the equipment. Like I have just enough time to do those things that I don't have a ton of time for like centering myself. If I know I'm doing a building stream, like a Sims building stream, or I was playing Garden Galaxy for a little while, sometimes I'll write like a few things I want to talk about,
Hmm.
uh, because there's less to react to in those games, and it's more just kind of a stream of consciousness experience. So I feel like I feel more comfortable if I'm like, okay, if I feel like I'm running out of things to say, I have this like list of stuff I could like chat about, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then did you say the things that you do kind of afterward to wind down?
Uh, yeah. I I don't.
Yeah, okay.
I try to raid if I have like some active people in chat, then I'll try to raid
Mm-hmm.
someone. My time doesn't lend itself to there being other people online when I wrap up, so sometimes it
Gotcha.
doesn't happen. So I do try to
Okay.
raid and uh um sometimes I'll look at the stream summary things, which I don't really think is helpful.
Mm.
um because it's those numbers that like aren't really what matters. And sometimes I'll just hang out in someone else's, like whoever I raid for a little while, just to like decompress
Yeah.
before I like go to bed. Because I stream kind of late, so I've got
Yeah.
to like hop in the bed so I can do my state government job in the morning.
That makes sense. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What is some advice that you have for your younger streamer self?
Hmm. I think she could benefit from hearing like it's okay to want attention.
Mm.
Everyone needs attention. And asking for things you need or doing things that get you the things you need is okay. Um, yeah, and I think I still struggle with that, like being okay asking for attention or seeking it, but
Yeah,
um, yeah.
that's great advice. Yeah. Yeah, I love that a lot. Do you have any goals or projects coming up with streaming?
I would love to someday have a full suite of emotes.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Love that.
um, I think I mean I need to figure out a better approach than me drawing them.
Mm.
And I say me, but I also have a regular who like does sketches and like mocks uh emotes up for me, which is like the kindest thing in the world. Like uh so a couple of them are like his emotes that he put together. But
Nice.
and then let's see. I just want to have like channel points, sound alerts,
Okay.
little goals, right?
Those are
I don't
great
have time for
goals.
big
Yeah.
goals, but little goals.
I think that's great. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. As is tradition on this stream, I have 10 final questions for you, inspired by James Lipton, Bernard Pivot, and CJ the X. So just quick and dirty, like first thing that comes to your head. Claire
Okay.
Cares, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Which game or activity do you love to stream the most?
Mass Effect.
Which game or activity do you hate to stream the most?
Oh, some days it's The Sims.
Okay, okay. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
The first thing that came to my head was Geralt from The Witcher, so
Okay,
I don't know what that says about me.
I love it. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Horror.
Which streamer would you like to meet most in real life?
Ooh, I want to meet Arietta.
Ooh, nice. What's something you would like to try on stream but never have?
Sorry, drawing a blank on that one.
That's okay.
Maybe playing the recorder.
Okay. Maybe, maybe.
Maybe.
What is something you would never want to do on stream?
Makeup.
Why do you go live?
To be seen.
Why do you really go live?
To make friends.
All right, final question. You're on your deathbed. You know exactly how much time you have. You have any and all resources available to you. Money doesn't matter. Viewer count doesn't matter. None of that matters. What do you do for your final stream on Earth?
I go to every save before every romance scene with Caden in Mass Effect, and play through all the romance scenes.
I
with
love
Caden in
that.
Mass Effect. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Claire, thank you so much for being here and for just sharing who you are. I think that like there's something that's like so beautiful about your caring nature and your kind heart, and also the way that you just embody what you believe in. I really appreciate people like you, and it's been so lovely getting to know you better and talking to you.
Thank you so much.
If you all aren't following Claire Cares, I need you to fix it immediately. Jalen, thank you for that gifted sub to Arietta. That's very sweet. But yes, please go follow Claire on all the things. We need to get more emote slots for Care. So go follow. Do it now. With that, Claire, is there someone online that you would like us to send the love to? Someone we can raid?
I'm not showing anyone else on right now.
No one online? Let's see.
Not that I follow.
Okay. I wonder if I have somebody that I feel like would be like-minded or someone. I mean, maybe not. Maybe we just call it here for the day. Let's do that. Let's just call it here for the day. This has been beautiful and wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
In Twitch chat, thank you all for being here. It's good to see you. If you enjoy this sort of thing, we do Why We Go Live every other Sunday-ish. So be taking a break for the holidays, and then we'll be back in January. You can follow Why We Go Live on all the different, socials and things and stuff. And if you think you would be a good guest, or you know a streamer that would be a good guest, send an email to whywegolive@gmail.com. That's it, Claire. Thanks so much. Okay, goodbye, everybody. See you later. This is not awkward at all. It's totally normal. And we're done.